Hey guys, Dave here with a look at the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite demo. So when talking about fighting games, these titles usually have a visual advantage on PlayStation 4, either by running at higher resolutions or more stable frame rates, giving these games a better graphical experience on Sony's platform. But when it comes to gameplay, there's one area that sees the Xbox One gain a slight advantage in several titles, and that's lower input latency. Testing by input lag specialist Nigel Woodall recently revealed that Tekken 7 features 120 milliseconds lag on PlayStation 4 compared to 104 milliseconds on Xbox One, essentially giving Microsoft's console a one frame advantage here, translating into a slightly tighter gameplay experience for top tier players where precise timing is everything. And perhaps unsurprisingly, this is also the case when looking at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Input lag in the demo comes in at 88 milliseconds on PlayStation 4, while on Xbox One this is reduced down to 75 milliseconds, again around a single frame advantage, just like in Tekken 7. Now let's be clear here, most players will probably never notice the difference, but it's something that can certainly be felt by top tier professionals that rely on per frame accuracy. This means there will be something of an adjustment period when moving from one version to the next, and in terms of high level tournament play, then the Xbox One version will certainly provide a tighter, more refined experience, particularly with regards to moves that require precision per frame timings. Of course, that's assuming that frame rates are identical across both platforms, and that a solid 60 FPS is maintained during critical gameplay conditions. And well, that's certainly the case here. Performance during gameplay is almost a match between the two versions, where both hit 60 FPS without any unwanted drops in frame rate. There is some mild tearing that crops up on Xbox One when the action heats up on one of the stages. However, frame times are not visibly compromised, and as a result, response time shouldn't be impacted to a noticeable degree either. Really, the only time where performance is impacted is during a KO, where Capcom deliberately cuts the frame rate in half for a few seconds in order to simulate slow motion. It's not really a great way of doing it, but gameplay isn't affected, and aside from a little temporary judder, this doesn't impact on the visuals for too long. So the Xbox One version can offer up a slightly more responsive gameplay experience, although in graphical terms, once again, it's the PlayStation 4 code that comes out on top. The game looks sharper, there's more fine detail resolved across the scene, and there's no screen tearing. However, the presentation is rather soft across both platforms, and due to the lack of clear edges, pixel counting is virtually impossible with the limited amount of material we have in the demo. PlayStation 4 does appear to operate at native 1080p, with the high level of post-processing and chromatic aberration responsible for the soft presentation. Whereas things look visibly rougher on Xbox One, texture details and edges are resolved to a lower standard, and scaling artifacts are present. It's clear that the game is operating at a sub 1080p resolution, and that means that the overall image just doesn't look quite as refined. We'll be able to get a better handle on native resolution when the final game arrives, but for now the PS4 provides a clearer, more refined image. And this also has an effect on how the core artwork is displayed. For example, the drop in resolution on Xbox One translates into texture details appearing softer across characters and the environments, even though we're actually seeing the same assets used in both versions here, with the same level of texture filtering. Both versions also feature low quality alpha effects that come in at around quarter resolution, so special moves and supers can look a little rough at times, particularly when there's lots of flames and energy beams filling the screen. It's definitely a step down from the impressive physics-based particles present in Tekken 7, which also look very clear and well defined. This is one area where the PlayStation 4 Pro could come in handy, particularly with regards to boosting native resolution and the effects quality, but right now there's no Pro support in this demo, and I guess we'll have to wait for the final game to find out what Pro brings. On that front, Capcom have been rather quiet. So far there's been no PlayStation 4 Pro specific upgrades announced for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, so it remains to be seen what kind of improvements we will be getting. Overall then, in terms of graphical quality, the PlayStation 4 has the advantage, but in gameplay terms the lower input lag on Xbox One is preferable. Of course, it's worth pointing out that only high-level players are really going to benefit from this lower latency on Microsoft's console. And for most people, elements such as D-pad accuracy and preferred controller is going to have far more of an impact in terms of which version will be providing the better experience for them. Likewise, the gapping image quality is more noticeable than the difference in input lag here. That said, we're only looking at a demo right now, and of course it's possible that the final game may bring about changes in both graphics and gameplay across both consoles. But until then, I think this early look at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite reveals an interesting difference in terms of controller response between consoles, and how this could possibly affect gameplay. We'll be taking a closer look at this with other titles in the future, but for now the input lag measurements in the likes of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Tekken 7 have been quite revealing. It suggests that as graphical quality and rendering pipelines have become increasingly more complex, the level of input lag has gone up. For example, Call of Duty 4 featured input latency of around 50 milliseconds, and it was running at 60 frames per second, whereas the latest fighting games are operating with anything between 75 to 120 milliseconds. A level of input lag we often saw with 30 FPS titles last generation, and this means we aren't looking at the same ultra low level latency in 60 FPS titles that we previously saw in the past. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we do at Digital Foundry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.